Everyone has a story. I get them to tell it. Welcome to the Aron Bender Podcast, conversations with media personalities about their personal and professional lives and journeys. Thanks for joining me, whether you're listening on Apple Podcasts, Amazon Music, Spotify, or your favorite platform. You can also watch on YouTube or nightly at 11 on DB&A TV at dbnatelevision.tv or streaming with the DB&A TV app on Amazon Fire, Roku, and Apple TV. That's 11 p.m. Pacific, 2 a.m. Eastern. Before we get to my conversation with Nick Hamilton, a little about my story. I'm a widowed dad of two girls who just lost their mom, a grieving husband, a man in recovery trying to reconnect with the world with fresh eyes, faith, and perspective, a college journalism professor, a white guy in a world of injustice, a 20-year broadcast media veteran who had his dream job and then lost it. A year and a half ago, God gave me a gift, an opportunity to stop, step back, and breathe so I can learn about love, vulnerability, forgiveness, grace, self-care, patience, and understanding. Nick Hamilton is the owner of Nitecast Media, a new and proudly Black-owned company covering all things sports and pop culture and more. Shout out my guy, Big Brother Jake, doing big things with Nitecast. Nick grew up in L.A. at a time when he says he wasn't sure he'd make it to C21. And for a time, didn't care whether he lived or died, and even one day gave someone the power to make that choice for him. Nick and I discuss fatherhood and how it's been raising an 8-year-old son with autism. We discuss mental health, his take on the Angels dumping Albert Pujols and the pickup by the Dodgers. We rate the two Chronic albums, even talk about Summer Jam. Yeah, Summer Jam. We all remember Summer Jam. And whether he thinks I could have rocked a cross colors jacket back in the day. I know you went to El Camino College. Did you grow up in that area?
Actually, I grew up the first 6 years of my life, I grew up in Carson, which is right down the street from Cal State Dominguez Hills. Yeah. Then we moved to the LA Inglewood area and pretty much grew up between those spots. Spent some time in Long Beach, on the east side of Long Beach, because I had a lot of cousins and stuff down there growing up. So spent time down there as well. And just kind of went well-rounded. So I just been around. I'm born and raised in LA. I know that's like foreign to a lot of people that may be watching and listening, but yes, there are some of us that are born and raised here in Los Angeles. And just being able to go to various high schools. If I mention certain high schools, LA people know exactly what I'm talking about.
What high schools? Like what, well, let's talk about yours. Like what memories do you have at the high school you went to?
Oh man, so I went to Westchester. I went to Crenshaw for a minute. I went to a place called Southwest Middle College, and then I ended up graduating from Culver Adult School because I got tired of school.
Okay. So we're going to unpack that. So why all the hopping around?
Basically, just it was a the 90s in LA was a weird time. I always say it was fun, but it was dangerous, and I think my mom, really wanted to try to protect me as much as she could. So when she heard something or I wasn't doing something I was supposed to do, she would move me around.
On to the next. Next.
And then my great aunt, she was a counselor at Southwest Middle College. So that's why she put me in there to kind of keep an eye on me. But that didn't work. But it's actually where I discovered that I could actually have a future in journalism. And at that time, I was on a school newspaper. And I would write about music. I would write about entertainment. Very little sports, but I would talk to you about sports. I would berate you about certain teams.
Oh, you want to talk about sports? Let's go. That kind of thing. Like,
but you know what?
You're about to be here for a while.
And that's where, it started when I was at Westchester. We used to be on the grounds, in the back basketball courts. And we got a newspaper back then and talk about everybody's teams that was sorry, or if your team was good or whatever, your player was sorry. So that's kind of where it started. And then, like I said, my 11th grade year, when I went to middle college, it was a teacher named Mr. Strauss. His name was Larry Strauss. And I had wrote a piece on, I think it was Snoop. And in the dog pound, it was like, I think it was right on the cusp of Murder Was a Case. No, it was after Murder Was a Case had dropped. It was on the verge of dog food dropping. It was just Dog Pound's album. And I had wrote a whole piece, like a collective. And he was like, man, this is good. He said, you got a few grammaticals, but other than that, like the structure is good. Like you actually got to. And I'm like, yeah, right. Okay, man. Like, that's one piece, right? He's like, no, dude, I'm telling you. And I had no idea who he was. Mind you, he had written cartoons for like Voltron, like Transformers, wrote some other pieces. I had no idea who this man was. So for him to tell me that, now that I look back on it, I was like, damn, I was naive as hell. I should have believed him.
Yeah, how long did it take after he said that? Did it kind of sink in like, okay, maybe this can be a future?
You know what? To be honest with you, it took years after that because I really didn't pay. Like I said, I enjoyed certain parts of school, but I hated school overall because it just wasn't feeding me intellectually. It wasn't feeding me uh, mentally. It was fun. I had friends and associates that I hung out with at the time. We went on some really wild adventures at the time. Um, it was just a crazy time. And so I think a lot of times when you look back on stuff in hindsight, you were like, man, I wish I would have done this move, or maybe if I'd have done this move a little different, how far would I be in life? But it didn't really sink in until I actually went back to school. Once I went back to school, which was at El Camino, that's when I was able to, get involved into the journalism program itself. And that's when I was able to obtain an internship at ESPN LA. And, shout out to Beto Duran because he was the guy that, created the pathway. And David Singer too, who's now at the NFL Network. But Dave Singer really took me under his wing along with Amanda Brown, who's still there at ESPN
she's running
LA.
things now. Yeah.
Oh yeah, she's the boss.
Not just a producer hat. She's
I told her, I said, you are the boss of all bosses. You do understand that, right? She's like, yeah. I'm like, no, you really don't. But it's cool. Just know that I respect your title. But she gives me great advice even to this day. So, and a lot of other people up there that I've been able to maintain relationships with.
Do you ever reach back out to Mr. Strauss?
You know what? I haven't seen him in years. I know he's still around, thank God. I hope that everything with him and his family is good with this whole pandemic situation. But I haven't reached out to him. But I hope if he's watching from afar, I hope he's proud at what he's seen. So
take me back to jumping around. Your mom hears something like, oh, okay, we need to take Nick out of this situation. What types of trouble might your mom have heard about?
Not going to class when I was supposed to, going to certain ditching parties back then.
I do appreciate that there's that slight change when we hear about mom, or so there's like a slight change in the body style and the kind of the mannerisms, like, I feel like I sent you back there, like you're back coming. In trouble again.
Yeah. Oh, and don't get me wrong, Pops was no joke either. So, it was kind of like, who do you want to face? Like, pick your poison, so to speak.
Yeah.
So, I was at Westchester for a while. And in 10th grade, I was wild. I got accustomed to the high school life. 9th grade, I will tell anybody this, and I'll put this one day in my book. I was an absolute nerd. I was I was just everything I was just everything, right? It was just completely, totally different. I didn't know how to dress because at Westchester, you had to know how to dress. You had to have your gear on point. If your gear wasn't on point, you were getting laughed at and you were getting clowned, and that's what happened. But that summer before 10th grade is when I really gained a lot of stuff and started hanging around certain elements that I shouldn't have been hanging around.
I was going to ask, like, was that a conscious decision on your part looking back? Like, okay, 9th grade, this is not how I want the next 3 years to go. I've got to make a change. Or maybe you just kind of got absorbed into something and you're like, okay, just the changes were happening.
You know what? It's funny, man. I got dissed by girls more than the law allowed. And I didn't like that because there was some really pretty girls. And I'm like, damn, is that how it is? I wasn't a popular cat. I would tell people that all day long. I didn't start hanging around the popular kids until I got to Miller College, and that's when we were the crew. But before that, no, Westchester, Crenshaw, no, absolutely. I was cool, but wasn't in that environment. And then
you weren't next level.
Not at all. But but I will say my gear was on point in 10th grade. I learned a valuable lesson.
Let's talk some of that gear. Oh
man. Well, let's take it back to the 90s. There were hangout spots. So you had South Bay Galleria, you had Del Amo Mall before they refurbished it, what it looks like now. You had Hawthorne Mall. Shout out to the Hawthorne Mall. Everybody that in LA that's listening knows what the Hawthorne Mall was a spot. Going to the Slauson Swap Meet. So There's just elements, and then being able to branch out and go into different areas. And those are the things that I really take to heart. It really shaped me as an individual. I mean, the good and the bad, it really shaped me. But going to different high schools, I was able to meet different people. So it's like now when I come in contact with people and they're telling me, well, where'd you go to school? What did you, oh man, were you in such and such class? Yeah, man, I was in, then we start to connect and build that
Yeah.
chemistry. And so
Yeah.
I thought that was just, now that I look back on it, it was good to see, being an LA native, being in LA and being in South Central LA and being around those environments really shaped me to who I was, or who I am rather. And really when I really had to go through those things, I realize now I have to go through those things to get to where I am right now.
Yeah, I remember. I don't remember what year of high school it was, but that back to school shopping,
Oh,
we couldn't afford much, but I made sure to get one, maybe two. I think just one Jean Co outfit. I couldn't go cross colors because I mean, look at me, look at me. I can't show up with cross colors, but Jean Co, JNCO, that was like, oh, okay, that's acceptable. You could do that.
I can see you in a cross colors jacket though. Like you can kind of slide with the jacket if you
Just the
coordinate it
jacket.
right.
Yes.
If you coordinate it right, you might be able to slide with the
Problem
jacket.
was, I got a purple Jean Co jacket with the black pants. I'm colorblind. I was rocking it one day with blue Converse, blue Chucks. And all day, once you get to school, that's it. You can't you yeah, it was,
A
and
wrap.
we didn't have lockers because after ninth grade, because of our class at Charter Oak High School in Covina, because of our class, they took out the lockers. After sixth grade
Oh,
at Royal Oak, took out the lockers. After ninth grade, Charter Oak took out the lockers. So I had to carry that jacket. I just had to wear it. Basically, I was like, okay, all right. I just won't. I
yeah.
know I won't do this again.
And you know what? The funny part about being geared up, as we used to call it, is the fact that certain schools, like if you would come to certain schools that wasn't into that, you were like looked upon like, oh my God. And then you had to be careful because you might get jacked because you got to take the bus everywhere. So I was taking the bus everywhere. Me and the guys that I hung out with, we were taking buses everywhere, like going to the mall, going to parties, going movies, wherever it was. So you had to be careful because back then there was certain thing as certain hoods you could not go through and wear certain things as you cross those neighborhoods. So you had to be very careful in what you rock. You still wanted to be fly, but you had to be safe at the same time and make sure you got home in one piece. So that, like I said, that's why I said LA in the 90s was fun, but it was dangerous too, man.
I know you said your parents moved you around. Were you cool with that when they were doing that? Did you understand it, or did it take some living of life for you to realize, looking back, oh, okay, that's why they did that. Thank you.
You know what? I understood it. I didn't like it at first because anytime it's new, you got to make all these new people. It was the cool part about going to Crenshaw was the fact that there was a few folks from Westchester that I knew that went there too. So we kind of connected a little bit. So it didn't make the transition rather as bad. But I was in a whole different mindset at that time. I was hanging around some folks that in my family, family, um, my cousins and whatnot, and
Yeah.
I was in a different headspace, and I say this, all jokes aside, I was in a different headspace, and at that time we didn't talk about mental health. We weren't talking about the importance of mental health and stress and PTSD as young Black males go through in the communities that we come from, and young brown males or whoever, we have PTSD, but it wasn't diagnosed back then. It was just like, oh, you just making excuses, or it was just kind of waved upon. You were weak, if you admitted something, that's how it was looked upon back then. But we all suffered from PTSD. And I think I had a mentality back then where I didn't care if I lived or died. There was an incident, and I'll share this with you. I haven't shared this before. So I'll share this with the Aaron Bender podcast, of course.
Thank you, man. I appreciate that.
So a couple guys that I knew, we were in this program. It was a USC bridge program when you coming from high school, senior high school to it was a financial program. It benefited people from Black and Latino and communities of color. and to teach us about the importance of finance, the stock market, how to read the stock market, how to read the newspaper. There's things that we weren't necessarily taught because a lot of our parents weren't involved in that. It's not their fault. It's just they taught us what they knew. But the good thing is that our parents had the good sense to expose us to those things, to where we can get knowledge from people that did know what was going on in those vast areas in the stock market and finance and the importance of business and things of that nature. So we would go to USC, and again, we take the bus everywhere. So we're on the bus. There was a movie that came out. We're getting off the bus, and we're not even paying attention. We're so hyped about seeing this movie, we're not even paying attention to the surroundings around us. As we say, we would call slipping, real bad. So we crossed the street. Man, when I tell you, it felt like a movie. You know you watch The Matrix. So
yes.
You know that slow motion as Neo like tries to dodge those bullets.
Right. That's what it felt like.
That's how it felt when you had about 30 blood gang members coming at us. Right? It's like a stampede. And all of a sudden they stopped. It's like something stopped them, like, hey, I got on blue, like the color I have on right now. And a couple guys I know, and they literally, jacked us. Pretty much pulled a gun out. Took our money. I had money patted down in another part of my body that I always keep just in case for emergencies at that time. And they took a lot of, my guys' wallets and things like that, but they pulled a gun on me, stuck it in my stomach. And I had on the Barclays, and they had just come out like a year prior. So this was no, I'm sorry. This was the third Charles Barkley shoot. So that was like 97, 98. And the dude wanted my Barclays. I'm like, no, I'm not coming out of them. I said, matter of fact, do me a favor. Why don't you just kill me now and you can get it over with? You be doing me a hell of a favor. And all of a sudden I see this dude's eyes literally bug out as if somebody is behind me. And he's like, man, them shit is probably fake anyway. And he walks off. Now, to this day, I don't know what was behind me. My mom thinks it was some guardian angel, whatever it was. And at that time, as I said, I didn't care if I lived or died because my mentality was all over the place. And I was literally trying to find myself as a young teen. So, and they looked at me like, damn, man, you not scared? I'm like, for what? What's he going to do to me that already hasn't been done? That was my mentality, but it was a very irresponsible mentality at that point, because I felt like had he called my bluff, I wouldn't be sitting here talking to you. I wouldn't be able to create the things that I'm creating. So it was a hell of a gamble. I don't encourage anybody to ever do that. But I happened to be very fortunate at that moment. And that's something that really, as I look back on it, it was like, wow, all the things that I went through, and I'm still here, and I'm still alive. I'm still breathing. I thank God I'm not paralyzed. I'm not, I got all my bodily functions. I can, move around. Some things sometimes you take for granted. You kind of think back on those moments like that in your life, and you have to really be grateful for where you are and what you're doing. And we went, and silly as it sounds, we went on and still went to the movies.
I was about to. Do you remember the movie? You remember the movie?
Damn, what was the movie? Shoot, I forgot the movie. To be honest with you,
if it's 97.
It's like 90. Yeah, I forgot the movie.
We'll have to look back.
It's a cult classic. That's all I remember. I know it's a cult classic, but we went to go see it, and we still went to go see it. And then we had to call my man, his mom, to come get us because we didn't have enough money
for the bus
to get back on the bus unless we were gonna sneak on the back of the bus. And if you in LA, MTA was notorious for sneaking back on buses.
Yeah.
But we weren't gonna do that. And she came and got us up out of there, and never looked back.
What was the conversation like with your mom when you told her what happened?
I didn't tell her what happened until about, I would say, like a week later.
I was going to say like a week ago.
No, yeah, like a week after that, I had mentioned it to her, and she was like, "Well, I don't want you hanging out with those." It's like, it's not them.
It's not them. It's just
the environment. And the thing about it is, like, but I didn't understand energy. I didn't understand positive and negative things, and how you attract certain people and attract elements towards you, whether good or bad, and how important that is. I didn't understand. She was trying to tell me that stuff, and it was just like right over my head, like, whatever. I was an intelligent
teenager. Yeah.
I mean, I was a pretty intelligent guy. I wasn't a dummy, but at the same time, it was certain things that I wasn't mature enough to handle.
Yeah. That
So,
mentality of not caring whether you live or die, when did you shed that?
my cousin, I went to his funeral and he got killed. And it was a cousin that I kind of grew up with. He's a little bit older than me, but we still were really pretty tight. And, I was at his funeral and a lot of his homies from his hood were there. And it's just something hit me like, I want to live now, because I didn't think I was going to make it to 21 because in society, especially back then, I'm sure it's probably similar to what it is now. Again, I'm not, in that age group, but back then it was like catch, if you make it to 21, you made it. That was the mentality. That was what was being spoon fed to us as young Black males. And so you were like, man, if I make it 21, I'm cool. And I got to 21, got to 22, and that's when it clicked. And I said, man, I don't want to live like this anymore. I do want to live. And I stopped hanging around certain people. Kind of started getting my life together a little bit, trying to still figure things out. But the elements changed. And when I saw that, when I went to that funeral, that's what turned me around. And I said, I don't want to be in the casket at 22. I don't want to be in the casket at 25. I want to live till I'm like at least a good 85 or 90. Let me go to the bingo hall and let me go hang out at the bingo hall when I'm 80 or something. Let's go slap some dominoes or something. Let me watch, let me have a nice little 40-something-year-old on my lap. Something, I don't know.
Is that when you decided to go to El Camino? And once there, is that when you said, okay, journalism or media is where I want to go?
Yeah, I ran from it because I was a model. So I had a modeling contract with LA Models.
Here we go, Nick.
I modeled for about 4 years. I had a contract for 3. I modeled for 4. Because and at that point I realized I reached my ceiling with that. And it was like, okay, now what am I gonna do? I made some money, but now what am I going to do? And one day I'll show off my modeling pictures. I don't care.
I know. I was going to say, I think this is where we need to include them in the YouTube version of this podcast.
You know me, man. I tell people all the time, I say, hey, when I give a damn, you'll be the first to know. But until then, I'll put them out. And I know I look good. But I mean, that's when I went to El Camino about 26. Yeah. And that's when I was like, you know what? I am an individual that needs to do something. I've been running from this. I feel like it was a path that I've been running from for a while. I didn't want to embrace it. I didn't really know how to embrace it, to be honest, but I didn't want to embrace it. And that's when I just went back to school. And I will say this much, a young lady whom I was with at the time, who was, the mother of my son at the time, she kind of encouraged me to go back to school. And that's pretty much when that took place. And then I realized, you know what, I like to write, I like sports, I like music, I like writing about entertainment stuff. Let me see how I can make this thing work, because now it's got to pay. If this thing doesn't pay off at some point, then I'm really screwed. So that's when I went to the journalism department and just really started taking classes, really participating. I took, speech classes. I took a marketing. I took an econ class. And that's what my love for, economics. Everybody said, oh, economics is boring. I was like, it wasn't boring to me, because I fell into it. And if I didn't do journalism, I'd probably be an econ major. Who knows? But I enjoyed it because I like money.
Econ was one of the ones that actually turned me off to business. I just could not wrap my head around. I don't know if it was macro or micro, whatever it was, that and one of the accounting classes. The first semester was great. Okay, let's go. Second semester, I don't know what it was, but it just was not clicking.
It's, you know what? It's like anything else. I think you have to really be engaged into it. And I think, like my accounting class I took, it was terrible. And it wasn't because of the class. The professor sucked.
That's another thing too. It's like, yeah. Sometimes it's the luck of the draw. Like, I knew first semester at Mount Sac, when I'm falling asleep in my history class as a history major, okay, this is not going to work. This is not going to fly. Because if all the history teachers and professors are like this guy, it's not going to work.
Yeah, and see, that's the whole thing. Like, some of these people don't deserve to have any business teaching a course. And, you know,
Because obviously at one point they were passionate about it, but
yeah,
it's clear that passion is gone.
they got complacent. They just taking a check and going home. They don't care what they do and what impact that they have, and that's the sad part about it. But for the most part, I have some really good professors, and so a couple of them I'm still good with to this day. Like, we still will communicate on social media, and but that's what I wanted to do. And like I said earlier, you know, she connected me with Beto Duran, and Beto had connected me with ESPN LA, and that's when I met Dave Singer, and I ended up meeting Amanda, and she'll probably hate me when I tell the story, but I didn't think Amanda liked me at first. I thought she didn't like me. She was like super hard on me. Like, she could not, she did. I'm like, dang, I'm an intern. She probably think I'm like, I don't know what she's thinking, but I know she just don't like me. And we had a conversation about it, so I could say it now. But
yeah,
she's like, no, I just, interns are interns. So I had to see what you were made of, basically. And I'm like, okay. So me and this other guy, we kicked ass. And I tell this story. That first week, that first 13, 14 months, I was going to school. Now I become a blogger. And Aaron, bloggers back then in like 2007, 2008 were like the antichrist to journalists.
Yeah.
Right. We were not respected.
It was you, Ben Maller, and Drudge. That
And shout out to Ben Maller, because I love listening to Ben Maller. Ben Maller's the coolest dude. I got a chance to meet him one time at a Dodger game before the pandemic.
He's
he was
great.
One of the coolest dudes I've ever met, man. What you hear on the radio is exactly what you see in person. So
yes.
Anyway, I digress. But that's what, those are the things that, so I sucked at writing. I sucked. I've talked to many classrooms and kids. Look, when I first started, I sucked. I want to burn. I hope that my stuff never resurfaces when I'm gone off this earth, because it would be an embarrassment to my family.
So you put out the modeling pictures, but the writing, that's got to stay.
Nope. Not back then. No, sir. And I used to write poetry. I still do from time to time. So I knew if I could write poetry, I'm like, damn, why am I having such a difficult time doing this? And I had to go back and kind of humble myself and understand the techniques doing that. So I was going to school. I was interning 21 hours a week. I was covering events as an independent, and I was working part-time. So that was my first 13 to 14 months. So I had no life.
Yeah.
I was sleeping 3 to 4 hours a day. I had no life. But I loved it. I was driven. And the goal that I had from day one, I told this to DJ Head when I had him on my show a while back, and I said, dude, because he used to say he has a saying where he says, hey, if you don't make a record that's going to be universal or nationwide, then what are you doing? And I said, dude, I totally feel that. And I took that. I said, to paraphrase that, I said, I applied that to media. So if I'm not competing with the big boys, the ESPNs, the Fox, the Yahoos, the NBCs of the world, then what the hell am I doing? Because I can conquer this. And it's no disrespect to people that were on an independent tier, but I know I can conquer that. I need to raise my level of expectation to a higher vibration to where I can achieve that. And I forced myself to achieve that. And I willed my way to achieve that. So that's what I was doing. So the whole time, learning, watching, and myself, and I forgot the other dude's name. We were the only 2 interns out of that 7 intern class that got a chance to go to the ESPN Christmas party. And from then on, we ended up flipping that into working for ESPN LA. We worked on the radio side. We ended up working on the promotion side. So I learned how to cut up sound. I learned what the promotions does, going out in the field, dealing with the fan base, all of those things. And I end up, I wanted to get on radio. Nobody would give me a chance. So I created my own. So I went and found me an independent, satellite radio station, paid my money every month for like 11 months and got on the air back in 2012. And it lasted 11 months because I ran out of money.
at some point, right?
Yeah. I got 1 month paid for, because we went to this store, independent store, and they paid us, for a month to advertise. And that was it. But I learned a valuable lesson. I didn't jump back on the air until about 2017. But I had so much accumulated knowledge. I was like, dude, okay, let's go. Like I listen to the people that I listen to that I admire and still do, and you happen to be one of them. That's ironic. I'm not just saying that because I'm on your podcast. Like I used to listen to you because your voice is very distinctive. So when you hear Aaron Bender, it's like, yep, that's him.
Thank you, man. I know, I appreciate that. Hold on, let me get that voice. Thank you, man. Thank you.
There you go. See, that's the Aaron voice. That's his signature sound.
So, as somebody who, you weren't a very good student, you're bouncing around all these different high schools. You had that mentality of, I'll be lucky to see 21. I hope I can see 25. Where did the work ethic come from?
Just being better, man. I just wanted to be better. I mean, let me be clear. I graduated with 3.65.
Oh,
let's
nice.
be clear about that.
That's better than me.
But oh no, again, I told you I have parents that don't play that. So
yeah,
they weren't going to settle for anything less than less than what I was willing to do. But it started when I was younger. I always had an entrepreneurial spirit. I used to sell cookies when I was young. I used to help my mom bake cookies. We would sell them at school. In the summers, I would have my own car washing business. So I would get my own equipment. My mom would, my folks would help me out rather. And I would wash cars all summer and stack up money.
So the work ethic was always there. It's just something at school just was not clicking. And I don't know what it is about journalism and journalists. I feel like a lot of journalists fall into it or it's not, front of mind as something that they want to do. There's something about the curriculum in a high school or whatever it is that for people who end up as journalists just doesn't click. It just doesn't, there's no passion sparked there.
I think it's because the way our brains work, we're smarter than the curriculum. I'll be honest and say that. I think we're a lot smarter than the curriculum allows us to be. I think they want to put us in this box. And I've always said, and I'll say this on this show too, the public school system is designed for Black and brown kids to fail, and other kids from lesser, communities, no matter what race you are, from lesser, financial communities, is designed for them to fail as well and create this pipeline to becoming workers instead of owners. And I've always had this saying, and it's trademarked, by the way, so nobody can take this.
Here we go.
So, but you like us as workers, but you don't respect us as owners. And that's what it is. And I'm constantly seeing that, even as kids today in school, I'm constantly seeing that they're promoting, oh, go out here, go get a job, go work for this company, go work for that company. And that's fine to get the experience. But at some point, obviously everybody can't be an entrepreneur. But at some point, what are you going to create to make the world better? There's something that you have to create that can make the world better. Even the most minute thing that you think is minute, that can be larger than life to many people that can benefit from it. But they kill our creativity, and it's designed to kill our creativity, which is why, like you said earlier, we don't adhere to the curriculum of the junior high or high school because our brains think differently. That's why we are journalists or reporters or, radio hosts or TV hosts, because we think different. And there was nothing back in high school that stimulated our intellect to say, oh, I can do this or I can do that. Think about if I didn't have a Mr. Strauss in my life, or several other teachers before him in my life that would be able to guide me, where would I be right now? And I see a lot of kids that don't have that backing. Where would you be? Where would anybody be without certain people in our lives that we grew up on, whether we accepted them then or we waited later on? Where would we be? So there's a lot of kids out there that need that backing. And that's what really propelled me to really start speaking in schools and really trying to connect with these kids, because it's like, look, if you could reach one, you may have saved a life, and you may have changed lives over the course of time for what they have to do. So, I don't mean to preach on here, but it's just like, that's my philosophy as far as the public school system goes.
What went into the decision, obviously, given what we just talked about, to start Nitecast Media, and also just the name of that alone? How did you come up with Nitecast, and what went into the decision to start your own media company? Or not even what went into it, because I think you just explained it. What kind of pushed you to say, okay, now is the time?
You know what, Aaron? It's interesting that you asked that, because, I always had this in the back of my mind, and your parents tell you always have a backup plan, always have a backup plan. And it's like, yeah, okay. And we're so stuck on plan A. And I said, working for various outlets, and I've been fortunate to work with some really big name outlets. I've been fortunate to work with some great independents.
Yeah.
But as you know, things change. Companies lay you off, you get fired, the contract doesn't get renewed, the monies aren't where they're supposed to be. You're like, well, hey, I'm not gonna work for peanuts.
Right.
But you still want to continue on doing what you're doing. But if you don't have an outlet, you can't get into certain things. So I think the last time my contract ran out, and I said, okay, now I'm screwed because now I have no outlet. I have nothing.
Yeah.
And I can't continue. And it was like a 2-month hiatus that I experienced. And I said, okay, it's time to create something. So I had another fellow colleague at that time that we created a company together. And it lasted a good while, and we built it up, and I built it up to a certain extent. I mean, I was holding like 80% as far as, just shouldering things.
Mm-hmm.
And, that's factual. And, it dissolved. And I said, okay, if I can do this with that person, I can do this on my own. So I decided, at first it was called Nightfall Media, and we opened that. And then due to legalities, the name had to be changed. So screw that network that got me to change the name, by the way.
Yeah.
To hell with them. But it was a blessing in disguise, because then at that point, the pandemic had hit, unfortunately, and shut everything down. As you well know, it shut everything down. We had some opportunities on the table that got stopped.
Just dried up. Yeah.
Like the Dead Sea. Just that was it. No more, no mas. That was it. You're done. Figure it out. So it's like, okay. So I gave it about a month, try to watch things happen. I said, okay, you know what? It's the perfect time to rebrand. So I rebranded, paid more money to trademark again.
It's investment. It's investment.
I like the way you say that, Aaron. I like the way you
myself,
say that.
I don't spend money on the studio. I invest it.
There you go. That's a great way to look at it. I'm gonna have to borrow that.
Yeah.
So, just going through those trials and tribulations, but they build your character, and they build your strength, and they really test you if you really want to do this. And I said, I'm going all in, head first. And we rebranded, got the website, try to find people to do websites, and just rebranded. And here we are.
So as we're in a world where it's like you can do anything, you can cover anything. You've got all kinds of platforms, as you've discussed, the idea that you own your space for your voice. How do you decide, okay, I don't want to just do sports. I don't want to just do entertainment and music. I want to do it all. I want to cover it all. In a world where it's like, no, I want to just specialize. I am only sports, or I'm only music, or I'm only entertainment.
The only time I want to be in a box is when I'm dead, right? And I don't even want to be in a box then. I think I want to be cremated. But that was my mentality. Like, I don't want to paint myself in this box. Like, I don't want to just be sports, because I got tired of being called the sports guy. I got tired of being referred to as, and that's great because that's where I started. I don't begrudge that at all, but I just got tired of hearing it's like, no, I'm more than this. I could talk about entertainment. I could talk about films. I could talk about music. I could talk about politics to a certain degree. I could talk about, I got gaming systems. I could talk about gaming to an extent. So I'm multifaceted. I can create content. I could create shows that have some substance to it and still have fun with it. I'm multifaceted. I'm not just one individual. And that's what kind of irked me. And so I said, no, I'm just going to go after it all. I'm just going to build these relationships up. I'm going to network my ass off, because that's where it is anyway. And I'm going to do what it takes to get to that point. So when I created Nitecast Media, I saw there was a void, because even though there are a lot of, there are quite a bit, let me not say a lot, but there are quite a bit of Black stations, but they're Black targeted. They're not Black owned. And there's a difference.
It's an interesting distinction. What's the difference?
Black targeting means you have Black people in front, men and women in front of the camera, or when you go inside the office space and you see the receptionist or the assistants or what have you, but who signs the checks, who owns the parent company, not necessarily Black. So that's Black targeting because you're targeting a certain demographic. Also, people of color. When you're Black owned media means you are Black owned. The person is of Black, descent, person of color, and they're disseminating to not just Black people, mainly Black people, but you're disseminating to all communities of color because everybody has a story. But there are stories that we can talk about as Black journalists and as Black media that Middle America can't speak to. So when you look at the distance between Black media and Black owned media, and just dealing with athletes alone, there have been instances where they will try to separate us from their athlete, whether it's through the manager, whether it's through the team, whether it's through whoever. And I said, no, I'm not going with that. And then unfortunately, the Breonna Taylor situation happened, the George Floyd situation, Ahmaud Arbery, Dante Wright, as of late, the gentleman in Elizabeth City, North Carolina, that was executed. Those kinds of instances were happening, and they had been happening. It wasn't just in 2020. Those incidents have been happening from Ezell Ford out here in LA to Sandra Bland to, back where Trayvon Martin was murdered. So, and then I started seeing teams take stands, and they were saying, hey, we want to stand up against systemic, racism and inequality and oppression. I said, oh, do you now? Okay. Does that include media too? Or does that just stop at a PSA? So that's what really geared me to challenge those entities, whether it were sports teams, whether it were entertainment venues, saying, hey, Black media matters. We're tired of being at the end of the damn red carpet, barely getting interviews, barely getting content, where we have to physically move around and act like we're something that we're not, just to get the coverage and the content so we can build our audiences, because our audience is just as important as the LA Times, as Yahoo, as USA Today or Sports Illustrated or what have you. So you're going to respect what we do. We are respected, earned journalists rather, that we want our opportunity. We deserve our opportunity because we've earned it. We're not asking you to give us anything. Just allow us an opportunity to showcase the talent and the media savvy that we've accumulated over the years to be able to get that. So that's where that came from. So, Nitecast Media, basically, night obviously being night, dark, Black people of color, and then cast because we're treated like outcasts sometimes in the media circuit. So I put those two together and said, that's the meaning. We're not outcasts. We belong here because, number one, we've earned our right to be here. And we maintain our professionalism. And two, we have an audience just as important as yours. And if you don't recognize that, realize that, and analyze that, then you will at some point. And we're going to make sure that you do. So that's where that comes from.
The access during the pandemic, did it get better or worse?
In certain regards, it got better. I kid you not, I was zoomed out because it was like I had to work this hard even when I was in the field.
I know. Yes. Yes. Because it's like now everybody's on Zoom. So now you have access to everybody. But at the same time, you can't just like pull somebody over for a one-on-one after they're in the middle of a gaggle or something like that.
It made it very challenging, but I take the bitter with the sweet. And I always say that I think it was sweeter more than it was bitter, because I think it afforded you opportunities that probably we wouldn't have been afforded if we had been in person, because they would have used the excuse of, oh, I'm sorry, there's no more room. Oh, there's plenty of room on Zoom call. There's plenty of room. You can't tell me, oh, I'm sorry, due to lack of space. I don't want to hear that lack of space crap. It's plenty of room on Zoom. All you gotta do is let me in, and I can sit there and conduct my business accordingly. So, yeah, I mean, I was able to cover, the Rose Bowl, because the Rose Bowl, normally I cover the Rose Bowl every year. I've been covering it for the last 4 years. Unfortunately, because of the pandemic, it had to move to Texas, and I wasn't traveling. I have not traveled since March of 2020. And I wasn't traveling to Dallas, Texas.
By the way, if anybody has a sighting of Nick outside of Southern California, you let me know.
Let me know. Yeah, let me know too, man, because I want to see that. Unless you clone me, I want to see that. But I just want to be safe. You know, I'm a single dad with a son. I was concerned about bringing something back to him.
Yeah.
How
old is he now?
He's about to be 8.
What kinds of conversations have you had with him?
He educates me on the coronavirus. Like, he's drawn the coronavirus, what it looks like, because he's watching it on TV, you know, the little graphics and stuff.
Yeah.
So he'll draw it. Daddy, so you can't go out because of the coronavirus is still circling, and it's gonna circle for a while. So we have to be safe. So he'll educate you, Aaron. Like, if I brought him on here, he'll educate you about the corona. He'll tell you everything you need to know about it, as if he was one of the main researchers at CNN or something. So, you know, I was just scared. I was concerned, rather, you know. And then, like I said, my parents helped me with him because of the stuff that I do, you know, and they're elderly, so they come over and they do what they need to do. And, you know, they're up in age, and so I don't want to bring anything back to them either. You know, God rest his soul, one of my good friends, you know, his dad just recently passed away of COVID, because somebody else brought COVID into their home, and he unfortunately didn't make it. And so that just really resonated with me, and I said, nope, I'm staying my ass in the house. If it can't be on here, or it can't be somewhere local, like I'm going to Staples or I'm going to SoFi or someplace like that, nah, I'll be right here at the house.
Your son is special needs. How is it kind of balancing everything? Pandemic, I've got to work. I've not just work, I've got a business to run, and people are counting on me. And oh, by the way, my autistic son is also counting on me.
Yeah, it's tough, man, especially when you're truly a single dad, because it's just me and him. And then, like I said, my folks help out. He has some really good godparents that will you know, help out with it, obviously, before the pandemic hit. And we're trying to work our way now to try to get back into it, because he has his god brother and sister, trying to get them reunited. So that's been kind of tough for him. You know, not having friends, not being able to go to school. It's been tough for any kid, whether they're special needs or just, you know, normal. It's been tough for any kid. So, you know, it's been a tough balance. I mean, the saving grace has been able to do a lot of things from home, where I can keep an eye on him.
Yeah.
You know, and like I said, he's a creative individual, but we have to make sure that we protect him from himself, because, you know, kids in that space, sometimes they get you know, rambunctious, and you don't want them to do anything that's going to pose harm to themselves, and they don't even realize it, you know, because they're just in their own brain.
Right.
And on top of that, having ADHD, that doesn't help either. So it's just trying to, you know, between calling doctors, making doctor's appointments, getting the counseling, and then me still having to do what I need to do. It's a never ending saga, you know, still building up this company, having a great team, you know, on the home front, as well as people that are with, you know, my company, people like Jackie Ray, people like Chris Camello, people like, you know, Giselle Morales, people like, you know, my director of you know, digital video, you know, Adrian Galera, you know, just the podcast, the shows that have entrusted me with trying to help them, you know, build up. Just having some really solid, great people, you know, and really, you know, a good friend circle, tight knit friend circle too helps. And of course, God Almighty. So, you know, on top of that, man, you know, it's not easy. And, you know, being truly a single dad, and trying to balance a business, being a man, being able to having to make phone calls and get up early. Like, I get like 6 hours of sleep a day, because there's so much stuff to do. So I got 18 hours to basically 17 hours, because you got to get showered and ready. And then, you know, after your workout, because you still got to stay in shape.
It's like, oh, by the way.
Yeah, right. So that's 17 hours left, 16 hours left. So what are you going to do with the 16 hours that you got going? So, you know, as you know, Aaron, I mean, you balance, you do a great job of balancing, you know, fatherhood and doing what you do, man. So, you know, it's never enough hours in the day for us to be out here and really get to where we need to get to, and really chip away at what we want to get to. But we do it in stride, man. We do it so effortlessly. It seems like, but we still do it. So that's what it is, man.
What do you think about
So,
SoFi?
oh man, it's beautiful. Aaron, it is sports heaven. I thought Jerry, when I went to Jerry's World one year.
I was going to ask if you'd been to Dallas. So
No,
yeah,
yeah, it was. I think it was 20. I want to say 2018 when the Chargers played the Cowboys in a Thanksgiving game. So I flew down there and I was like, "Oh my God, this is Jerry's World!" Like Jesus. Okay, this is sport. And then when they built SoFi, and props to Stan Kroenke and Stockbridge Capital for putting that just the land itself together. But SoFi Stadium, my God. And I said, okay, this is sports heaven. If I'm going to be buried somewhere one day, this is where I want to be buried. This is it. This is it. I mean, love Jerry's World. Props to Jerry Jones. But damn it, SoFi Stadium is the place. I mean, if you have not been there, fortunately, this season, a lot of people will be able to go to SoFi once again and be able to experience it. You definitely got to experience it. I mean, it's spectacular. I mean, the way they have it shaped, the other amenities around Hollywood Park, that whole lot. It's 200 and almost 300 acres. I mean, you could put 3 Disneylands in there and have some room.
Are they done with it? I can't remember. I mean, they've still got some more development to go, right?
Yeah, they still have some development to go, but I think by the time the NFL season cracks off, I would say I'll be willing to say at least 75% of the things will be open and available to people, which would be great. So I always tell people, look, all you missed was a bunch of dirt being moved. There's nothing I mean, all you can do is go to the stadium and leave, right? Because there's nowhere to go. Like, you have no place to go. Even for us in the media, we had no place to go for Rams and Charger games. So it's like stadium, show them your pass, park a space apart, get in, get the hell out. That's what it was. So fortunately for fans, it'd be great for fans, man. But I'm just so looking forward to this NFL season. I'm so looking forward to sports, at least from a normal side, getting back. I mean, the day to be back on track for the NBA and the NFL and the NHL and college football and baseball. So I'm so looking forward to that.
So growing up, were you like Dodgers, Lakers, Kings? It's just and how has that fandom changed as you've entered the media?
Ooh, Aaron, that is an excellent question, sir. I'm glad you asked me that. Allow me to elaborate, if I may. Growing up, man, yeah, we were Dodger fans, we were Laker fans. I tell this story all the time. My first baseball game, my parents got tickets from the job, and we went to the World Series game 1, 1988.
Oh,
My first. Had no idea. Just like,
that,
hey, we're going to a Dodger game. Okay,
that's
cool.
your first game.
Very first game.
Wow.
Very first Laker game. Again, my folks had to hook up. Somehow, some way, my folks had to hook up. 1988.
Also 88.
Game 2 of the Lakers NBA Finals against, I think they played the Pistons that year?
The Pistons that year? I think so.
Yeah. Went to that game. Sat in the seats where all the Laker families were, because we had tickets where the Laker families and like the wives and stuff would hang out. Those were good seats. We went to McDonald's. Wow. Mom's got me a quarter pounder with cheese, some fries. Only thing my mom bought was a program and something to drink at the Forum. That was it. You better enjoy these seats. And that was my first basketball game. And I've been a Laker fan. I was a Laker fan at that point. I was a Dodger fan. When Wayne Gretzky got here, that's when I became a Kings fan.
Yeah, you and about 99% of the rest of us who are Kings fans. Yeah.
Yeah, and I played hockey when I was younger. I started out with playing roller hockey, and then we had graduated up, and I used to play at the Culver City Ice Rink. God, don't get me started on that. It's just such a sad situation. But anyway, but I really got into it because, again, I got exposed going to different schools when I was younger to get exposed to different cultures. And so that enabled me, and I wanted to do something different. I didn't want to be like, okay, typical basketball, football guy. I wanted to do something different. And that's what I did. So all in all, I grew up that. And then I grew up a Yankees fan too, because my great uncle used to be a Yankees fan. So I kind of took on his.
My face. Ooh.
Hey, man, look here. I was a Dodgers fan, a Yankees fan, and people couldn't figure out how I became that. I was like, I'm holding the tradition down. My great uncle, he lived in New York.
Yeah.
He was a Yankee fan, so I took that on. And
Yeah, I got a little bit easier because my grandfather, who grew up a Brooklyn Dodgers fan,
see, yeah, there
so
you go.
it was easier that way.
Yeah, there you go. See, all those old school guys, you were either a Yankees fan, a New York Giants fan, the baseball team before they moved to San Francisco, or like you said, a Brooklyn Dodgers fan or what have you. So it all coordinates in that area. So, but as I got into this business, man, my fandom subsided, and so now it's like, are you a fan of anything? I'm like, I like teams. Like, I want to see the Clippers and the Lakers do well because that helps me. I want to see the Kings do well.
There's an energy around the city that you
yes.
don't get if these teams don't play well.
And you know what? The beauty of sports in LA is the fact that sports brings people together that you would normally never run into. When we have Laker parades, I mean, you have Black, you have Latino, you have Asian, you have gay, straight. If you're a Laker fan or supporting the Lakers, it's all one big happy family. Even during the Kings parades, like I've never seen this many hockey fans in my life.
I know. Where
half
they
these people
come from.
Half these people couldn't even tell you two or three members of the Kings that year, those years.
Yes.
Not named. And I had one lady tell me, "Oh yeah, Wayne Gretzky." I said, "Ma'am, do you realize Wayne Gretzky hasn't played hockey? Yeah, actually, he's a partial owner. Do you realize that in another hockey team?"
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Well, yeah, go Kings. I'm like, hey, you know what? Welcome aboard. Hell, what am I gonna say? But I mean, I like to see the Rams and Chargers do well. I love what the Rams have done. Transforming the culture. Most important, I love what they've done in the community. I like LAFC. I covered the LA Galaxy during the years of David Beckham and Landon Donovan and Robbie King when they won all those MLS Cups, when it was fun and great to cover the Galaxy.
Yeah.
I like LAFC. I think they're doing a fantastic job with that ball club. I want to see the Kings do well. I like to see the Angels do well with Mike Trout. I love Mike Trout. I think he's a great guy. Damn shame they're not giving him enough help. But I like Shohei Ohtani. Shohei Ohtani is a phenom.
Can we get some pitching on that Angels mound?
Let me tell you something, Aaron.
Some year they're going to put it together.
I'm going to say it like this, and I'm going to be very discreet when I say this. When there's too many hands in the cookie jar, they're bound to go spoiled because somebody's going to leave the top off. That's all I'll say about that. Look at the difference between the Dodgers organization and the Angels organization. There's a reason why there's a difference. There's a reason why Albert Pujols is now a Dodger.
What do you think about that?
Treated. I will say this much. I personally believe the Angels could have handled that situation a lot better than they did, regardless of what went on behind closed doors. I mean, I'm sure you did too, Bob Nightingale's article about what transpired behind the scenes. And that's going to happen. But from an optical standpoint, what is that going to look like for the future of your franchise? You look at the Lakers, what they did with Kobe Bryant the last 2 years. Did Kobe Bryant deserve a $48 million contract? No. But were they going to give it to him? Yes, because of what he had, the work that he had put in and helped keep the Lakers on the map.
Yep.
I didn't have a problem with him. This is Kobe Bryant we're talking about. I didn't have a problem with it. But I mean, you look at it from a financial aspect, no. But they did that to show people, hey, we take care of our own. The Dodgers did that to the Silver Fox, 2 years before he decided to retire. That dude was done 2 years before that. Yeah. But they did that because they wanted to show, hey, Chase Utley, we respect what you've done, what you brought to the game. And that sends a message to other players saying, hey, if you come here, maybe I'll get treated like that too. The same thing with the Rams, same thing with the Kings, what they did with Dustin Brown and his wife and moving forward. Hey, we take care of our own here. The Angels didn't seem like they got that message. And it's like, hey, Albert Pujols said the other day, look, whatever my role was going to be, and he said that in spring training, whatever my role they want me to be, I'll fulfill it. It's fine. He knows Jordan Walsh was the next man up. He was mentoring the kid. He had a lot of respect for the kid. But the way he just hung it, it's like they dumped him on the side of the road like yesterday's trash. And I thought that was really, really disrespectful to a guy that's going to be a future first ballot Hall of Famer and what he brought to your franchise. all that you did to get him here to the franchise, and then because you don't feel like he's producing as well as he should be producing, you want to dump him on the side of the road. And I just felt like that was incredibly disrespectful to his legacy, and I thought that really hurt the Angels. And I said this on 570. Hey man, if I'm Mike Trout, I might be thinking second. I may have a second thoughts like, hey, how are they going to do me near the end of my contract? Are they going to do me like they did Pujols?
Yeah,
it's a valid question. I'm not saying they will, and I think there's some great people in the Angels organization. Starting with the PR department, on up. I think Perry is a good GM. I think he's a very incredible, knowledgeable individual. But as far as the optics are concerned, that's how you do your future Hall of Famers. Now he's definitely gonna go in as a Cardinal. Yeah, any hopes of him going to the Hall as an Angel? I mean, thanks, but no thanks. I mean, geez, really? Albert Pujols as an Angel going into the Hall of Fame? How big would that be?
Yeah. That would have been fantastic. And if they would have just given him some help, given him and Mike Trout some help, then maybe he would go in as an Angel with another ring as an Angel.
Listen, 5 general managers under the Artie Moreno administration. 5. Imagine that. How many GMs have been under the Guggenheim administration? 1.
Yeah.
And it actually was 2. Farhan departed, and Andrew Freeman, the real brain trust, was able to work. And you see what that produced. Multiple World Series appearances and a World Series ring on top of that. So,
you brought up Snoop earlier. That it was one of the things that you wrote about that really kind of got Mr. Strauss to praise you and kind of try to push you in this right direction. Original Chronic or 2001?
The Chronic album. And I'm going to say the Chronic album on vinyl. The Chronic album on vinyl. Yeah.
That gave me goosebumps just thinking about that.
Dr. Dre is, I don't know, I saw somewhere that Fat Joe said that DJ Khaled was the Quincy Jones of hip hop. Fat Joe has lost his mind, or he was drunk, also too much Ciroc. Shout out to Ciroc, by the way. There's no way in West Hell you're going to tell me that Dr. Dre is the Quincy Jones of rap or hip hop. The dude is an incredible ear. He's an incredible producer. The man knows talent. Hell, he was technically an A&R, Ruthless Records, when he was young. And to me, the production has gotten incredibly better over the course of time. Like the Straight Outta Compton album, that was great. But the News for Life, the production of it, totally on a different level. The DOC's album, he made the DOC legendary after one album. That was Dre's production.
Because of the beats. Yeah,
And DOC just, I told him to his face one day, I said, "Dude, you're the Shakespeare of hip hop, just so you know." So you combine those two talents, and then you got a Snoop Dogg, a raw, unpolished diamond like Snoop Dogg back then, to where he is now, who reinvented himself over and over again. Brilliance. You got the Dog Pound, you had the Lady of Rage. They were able to bring Tupac on and create one of the most, probably the biggest masterpieces of his career. And that thrusted Tupac's career into the stratosphere with All Eyes on Me. Pac was, we talk about the Golden State Warriors pre-Kevin Durant, and then what the Warriors were with Kevin Durant. Death Row were the Golden State Warriors. Tupac was Kevin Durant. And we know what that produced. So yeah, I hope that answers your question. I love Chronic 2001. I love it. I think it's great too. But it's just that, again, that 90s epic sound.
Yeah. I feel like Chronic 2001, and again, I am not a hip hop head. Don't come at me. do not. But I feel like they were bookends. It's like, okay, you've got the original Chronic, you've got Chronic 2001. Anything before or after that, Okay, it's fine. That's fine. But it's it's those two albums and everything in between. We could
Yeah.
talk about it, sure. But those two albums right there are the beginning and the end of an era.
Oh yeah. I mean, and I even love the Compton album because there was a lot of live instrumentation that Dre was able to orchestrate on that album. I don't think a lot of people really respected that album like they should have because I thought the Compton album was a great album too. I think it
Yeah,
was
it
Dre.
didn't get the critical love that that
Even though I believe it went platinum though. So I mean, I know he was taking the proceeds from that album to benefit, I believe, Compton High or doing some things with the Compton Unified School District. So props to Dre for that. But yeah, man, I agree with you. I mean, I think about the Warren G album, Regulate the G Funk era,
oh, so
Twins, the
good.
Dove Shack. Um, really, Snoop just put Long Beach on the map. I mean, you had so many talented people come out of Long Beach because of Snoop Doggy Dogg at that time. From the Dog Pound on down, Nate Dogg, rest in peace. I mean, you had just incredible artists, LBC Crew, just incredible artists, man. And it was just a time frame where it was captivating. And it put a lot of pressure on other guys to get better. Like you had Ice Cube. Cube was dominant. He was able to produce groups. Caution and
All
KD
from the
and the
eye.
West,
And, yeah.
All from the Eye and West Side Connection, which I hope one day they reunite. Because my
Please give it
God,
to me.
please. Everybody keeps asking Mac 10, and,
Ah.
and every time I say it, I'm like, no, I don't want to ask Mac 10 that because you might get mad. So enough people have asked Mac 10 about the West Side Connection reunion. So I said, well, if I ever get a chance to interview Ice Cube, I'm going to ask Ice Cube directly.
I
What's
don't
going on?
remember what year it was. Early 90s, 92.3 The Beat had Summer Jam out at Irvine Meadows Amphitheater. West Side Connect was supposed to perform, and it was canceled like 2 acts, I think, before. I don't know if it was SWV was supposed to perform just before they came on, but there was just too much shit going on. It was too hot. There were too many fights, and I never got to see West Side Connect. Never. It was that that's one of my regrets is I never got to see West Side Connect.
I saw them on the Up and Smoke tour. That was the only time I saw them on the Up and Smoke tour. But yeah, I never went to Summer Jam because every year was a fight. Every year was a fight at
It's the
Summer
only
Jam.
it's the only
I
year we
never
went.
went.
Yeah.
I've never gone. I was like, nope, I'm good. Some fights are gonna break out, and I'm like, no, somebody's gonna get shot. Nope, I'm good. I'm
Nick,
good.
this has been great, man. This has been years in the making. I really appreciate you taking the time. Seriously, man. I appreciate it.
Thank you for having me on, Aaron, and thank you for doing what you do as well, man. I really appreciate this opportunity. Thank you for having me on, man. It's been fun. It was a nice little trip down memory lane, and I appreciate you having me on once again. And Nitecast Media is in full motion, so here we go.
How can people get a hold of you?
You can find me on Twitter at Nick Hamilton 213. You can find me on Instagram and Facebook at Nick Hamilton LA, and then also at www.nitecastmedia.com, which is spelled NITECASTMEDIA.com, and then on all social media platforms at Nitecast Media. So you can find us there. We got a lot of great content, a lot of good people that's a part of the team, and we're continuing to grow. So we have a lot of new podcast shows that have come on board, rather, and gracious enough to come on board. Shout out Lakers Unfiltered, great show. Downtown Rams, another great show. Got a couple more in the books I can't speak on right now, but definitely you're gonna be pleasantly surprised. We are definitely
You always got something
loaded.
working though. It's not I could talk to you in 6 months. Got a couple things I can't really talk about right now. 5 years, got a couple things I can't really talk about right now.
It's you know what? Because I don't want to put the cart before the horse, and I'm like, okay, if it doesn't go down, then you look incredibly stupid, and I don't like looking stupid. So I just rather keep my mouth shut and just say, hey, you know what? Let me just hold off. But I will say this much: I've been working on a script, like a TV script. So I've been kind of dibbling and dabbling with that, but hopefully when things kind of calm down a little bit, I can kind of finish that up. And then hopefully by the time we talk next time, we'll be close to having that finished, or at least getting some type of meetings from some people.
I look forward to it, man. Come back on. Thanks, Nick.
Thanks, Aaron. Appreciate you, man. Have a good one.
Thanks for watching the Aron Bender podcast on YouTube or streaming nightly at 11 p.m. Pacific, 2 a.m. Eastern on DB&A TV. That's dbandatelevision.tv or the DB&A TV app on Roku, Apple TV, or Amazon Fire. You can find me at AronBender.com. Email me guest ideas, comments, AronBenderMedia@gmail.com. Be well, and thanks for watching.